call this meeting to order at 3:03. This is the meeting of Subcommittee B, Finance and etc.
Finance
So,
and IT.
thank
So,
you. Finance and IT.
Yeah, I'm gonna, because a lot of the budgets are like budgets that I'm gonna do. I figured we could maybe do like procurement first and then IT and then treasury, and we can sort of let those division people lead. I'm gonna do assessing because Anne can't participate today.
Okay.
Office is pretty busy with abatement requests and stuff because the deadline is Thursday. So
Okay. If anybody has any objections to that, I will approve that.
okay, so Sandy, procurement officer, she can start.
Hi, everybody. So my budget for procurement this year is actually a decreased budget. As far as our salaries go, there's a slight increase. It's only about 0.8%, and that's due to a change in staffing. I did have a change in my administrative assistant position. So that dropped down the longevity line. And then there was just a slight increase to our regular salary line. The remaining of the budget, the actual operating, I have a 3.9% decrease in the budget. Part of that is due to repair and maintenance of equipment. Typically, we cover the postage equipment, but the clerk's office is going to be covering some of that cost. I also had a large decrease in office equipment. Prior to entering the budget, I asked all the division and department heads if they have any furniture needs or procurement expenses that are out of the norm. Last year, I had quite a few. This year, I did not. So that actually decreased, that line from last year decreased about $18,000. But then, unfortunately, I had a couple increased lines. Our printing costs have gone up, and we are also going to be printing the business cards for the police department. In the past, they've covered that expense, but procurement has always purchased the business cards for all the other departments. So we're going to absorb that for them. And our cell phones have increased. We've had to add some lines, and some of our plans were grandfathered. So as we're adding new lines, and as plans are changing from the 4G to the 5G, our costs are increasing.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Not me.
Okay. I just have one question on that.
Sure.
So on your salaries, you lost a staff member?
We didn't, we had a change in staffing.
Okay.
So what happened was I had someone that had more years in, so they were making more and they were earning longevity. They went to another department, and I assumed a staff member that has less years and is not at that longevity line yet. So that's why our overall salary increase was only at 1%, and our longevity line dropped 18%.
Okay, because all right.
So we still have the same amount of staffing. It was just a newer staff member doesn't make as much as the one we had previously.
Understood. Okay. Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept procurement?
Motion moved.
Motion. And a second?
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. And
Thank you, everybody. That was easy.
Thank you.
Have a good
Joe Young.
afternoon.
Thank you too. Joe Young, is that
How are
Next
you?
one, IT. Yes. thank
Yep.
you.
good? How are you?
Good.
Do you know a page that starts on?
So IT.
It's near the back, I know.
Yeah, it's at the very back of Subcommittee B.
There it is. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, everybody's ready. Not as lucky as procurement. Our budget is increasing. The total budget is just north of $3 million. Salaries and wages are increasing 82,204 from last year. Expenses are increasing 342,000. And departmental equipment is increasing 43,750. All of these increases are basically in response to the cyber threats that municipalities are facing. We're implementing asset management software for $60,000. We're upgrading our endpoint detection management system to include remediation, investigation, proactive security, as opposed to the basic level. We're also adding just over $43,000 for Azure licensing, so we can use our MFA products. Another big ticket item is the Laserfiche maintenance and hosting, just under $50,000. That is the records digitization software being used by our permitting departments.
Okay. You have a lot here, Joe.
It's a lot here. A lot of this is necessary. It's all necessary.
Yes.
We're not
No,
only
I
do
didn't mean that. I meant a
Yeah.
lot to absorb.
yeah, there's everything in here. From police, fire, dispatch. We support the school department with our Munis application. We have over 50 miles of fiber wiring on the telephone poles, connecting over 41 sites. We have security camera systems throughout the entire school system and municipal buildings that we maintain. And that comes with panic alarm buttons and servers that we also maintain. So look at this department, we're not just a town IT. Our core services overlap town and school.
Okay.
The other thing I just want to highlight, Joe had asked for an additional position this year, which is a cybersecurity. Actually, he had requested a few additional positions, but the one that is being recommended by the town manager is the cybersecurity position. And he is going to reallocate some resources that are existing in IT to fund that position. So that's what that new initiative is the cybersecurity position.
So that won't affect the bottom line of the budget. It's just moving items from other expenses into the cyber analyst position.
Yeah, so currently right now we have a GIS position that's vacant. So the town manager would like to reallocate one of the network technician positions to be like a GIS/network technician, a combination position, and then free up those resources, that money, for the cybersecurity position. So it's all within salaries.
I mean, 19% is a pretty good jump in 1 year.
Yeah, like I said, it's a majority of it's all driven for cybersecurity. And we look at these other municipalities, one just north of here in the last year has paid over $12.5 million because they got breached, systems were down. I'm not guaranteeing that won't happen to us, but this will put us in a much better position.
I have a question. Do you allocate any resources for cybersecurity threat analysis. So if
Yeah,
you have
so-
a company that comes in,
Yeah, so we've done external, internal penetration tests. And we've been in the process over the last year of making improvements with the results of that test. The Sophos has a lot of that in it. They'll come in and they'll look at it and they'll give us some proactive measures to take with all their years of experience. It's a never ending game right now.
I can sympathize with that, truly. So have all the computers been upgraded to Windows 10 or higher?
Yes, they're all, and it's funny you bring that up because this new software we just got for the asset management takes that, it looks at Windows 10 software all the way down to the build level, where our current software only looked at, okay, it's Windows 10, it's a green light, it's fine. But Windows 10 at a certain build level, so you go down to the next layer and the next layer, the next layer, those levels aren't fine. We turned this device on and we found, I think, 18 computers that we needed to go out and update, thinking they were fine. But now with this new tool we got, and with this one, we got a state grant to get us started now. So it's the state realizes it's such an important issue for municipalities that they're giving us grant money to get these things going. So we're not waiting until July 1st to get them up and running and protect ourselves.
So does this budget include the grant money?
The
Are
grant
we
money's
including
one
any of that?
time. It's just a one
Oh,
time. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
So Joe, my broker dealer every year makes us take a little course on how to spot phishing and spear phishing and
Mhm.
all of these and how they use social engineering to get in. They could get in from one of your colleagues to get to you. Do you guys require that of every employee that has an email address from the town?
We offer to every employee. The lights in my office just went off. Sorry. We don't make it mandatory. We are going to, I believe, look into making it mandatory in the next round of contract negotiations.
Absolutely. That will mitigate a lot of your problems.
Yes, we've been doing what we've been offering. I believe we've been offering it for the last 3 to 4 years. And it's mandatory for our insurance, and Lynn can talk about how our insurance is mandating that we do more and more to combat the cyber threats.
Yeah, for our insurance company to provide coverage to us, we are required to have MFA, multi-factor authentication, and we are required to have endpoint detection, whatever
MDR,
that
yeah.
is, all that technical stuff. And then obviously we did get a grant. A lot of the division heads, Joe, you know, we did get a grant from the state that provided a lot of the cybersecurity training, and a lot of department heads and division heads, if they had staff who didn't take that training, like we went and made them take that training. I can tell you, as far as the finance department is concerned, where we have a lot of users who are, you know, are privy to a lot of things, and especially in the treasurer collector's office, we do a lot of banking, we do a lot of, you know, interaction with the outside world. And in addition to the cyber training that the state provided, we also take advantage of any training that our providers, you know, will give us. Like we've done training with Bank of America, we've done training with Zobro, which is another software product that we have. So we're constantly looking at those things, and we have a lot of policies and procedures in place to minimize and, you know, eliminate us making a boo-boo or something like that.
So my broker dealer from time to time puts out its own attempt to fool you, and
Yeah.
if you don't report it, they make you take even more training.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do that.
We've gotten those too, and I know, I'm hoping that none of my staff has fallen, for some of those fake ones that come in, but, it's scary. It is,
It is.
definitely.
We've done that, and the two people fell for it, and one of them was the register.
Mm,
Oh,
mm,
and but it's not difficult. Some of this is so sophisticated.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other one was somebody who is in my staff in the archives department. And, you know, it was a UPS, you know, email, and he was waiting for, you know,
Mhm.
microphone to come back, and, you know, so it's easy to do.
Mm,
But yeah,
yeah.
I would push for that requirement on staff training, because, you know, I think it's important. I'm not sure if it's required on um, contract negotiations, but
Yeah,
um,
the requirement comes from above. So we have to work obviously with the town manager's office and the human
right,
resources department to make
yeah,
that a requirement. And we've been talking about it for, you know, a number of years now, and we have the opportunity to at least, you know, if we can't make it a requirement, then at least maybe try to negotiate it in the contracts to make it a
Right.
requirement.
sure, right.
Or, you know, part of the onboarding process with employees, you know, we've been asking to do that. So hopefully, you know, these measures that we're asking for will happen.
So I just have one other question or comment. Joe, you want to make sure that everything you need is in this budget, because, you know, when come fall or summer, or, you know, our next meeting, it's, you know, when you don't want to come back looking for a ton more money.
Right. I think where we are financially as a town, I think we'll make this work. Obviously, everybody wants more. Everybody wants 2 candy bars, not 1 candy bar. But we will make this work, and I'll come back every year as things change and ask for either more employees or more AI and software to keep us safe. The biggest fear we have is, you know, the technology that's in place, I believe, is in pretty good shape, and our reports show that. It's if someone calls and someone's on the phone and says, hey, someone in Lynn's department changed my bank number to this, my new checking account to that, and software's not, and all the things we're doing is not gonna stop that from happening. But I believe all the policies and checks and balances that the finance department has should catch it. But that's, you know, that it's not just technology, someone hacking in, it's the human element that we also, so it's multi-attack surface we need to protect.
Yeah, you know, as you know, I am in the field, and you know, I'm responsible for everything at the registry, and I'm responsible for all the employees. So I understand, and you know, I'm supportive.
Thank
You know,
you.
whether the rest of the, you know, FinCom is supportive, you know, I am, simply because I'm on that same front line. Are there any other questions?
I'm good.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. So that passes. Thank you, Joe Young, for
All
that.
right, thank you. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.
So I think we have Patty Meacham. Yes.
If we could just do the assessing, I just want to bang that
Oh,
one
sure.
out. Anne was not able to attend, so assessing was right behind procurement. There's not a lot of changes to this budget. It actually is a decrease, budget.
Mhm.
Really, it's just contractual increases in salaries, according to the contracts. Everyone in that department is in a union contract. And then as far as the expense side of things, we're actually seeing a decrease in some revaluation services, because one of the things that we had in that budget was some money for the whole tech appraisal, and now that we are under I believe it's an 8-year pilot agreement with them, we don't need to have that in the budget. So we just have regular revaluation services and appraisal services in there.
I have no questions.
So my only question, I do have a question. My only question is when you talk about the union negotiations, I know they're coming up this year. So are you putting aside money? I think there was something like 3.6. Is that what you're putting aside?
Yeah, so the money so every single department has budgeted for any step increases that are required, like if someone has been here so many years and they do a step increase. So all the departments have included step increases in their budgets. And what we've done is as far as COLA increases, the town has set aside in the salary reserve budget, which is one of the budgets that we'll review today. We set aside some money for the town side for our 8 collective bargaining agreements, 8, which also includes a personnel code, which is the non-union group. And then the select board moved 1.2 million from the school budget that the school had for salary negotiations. They put that into salary reserve. And then we added another 1.2 million, or the select board did, to the salary reserve budget for contract negotiations. So there is about 3,537,000, I think, that's set aside for contract negotiations.
Okay. Thanks. I don't have any other questions.
Motion to approve?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so Patricia Meechan, our treasurer collector, she'll go over the treasurer collector budget and the tax title foreclosure budget.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so that's page 103, or 7 of 67.
That's correct, yep.
Thank you.
So the salaries and wages, we have increases. Those are due to contractual agreements with the unions, which include the step increases that Lynn was just speaking of, as well, and any vacation or sick time buybacks. The only other increase that we had in our salaries or wages is we are looking for seasonal part-time help to sell the beach and transfer station passes and offer the in-person sales for 12 weeks. That is something that we've done in previous years, and then there was a period of time that we were only offering the sales online, and I know that it was one of the things that had been requested by a lot of the taxpayers and residents was to offer in-person sales. So last year was the first year that we offered that. But in addition, we were in the process of transitioning from a fiscal year sticker to a calendar year sticker. So last year, there wasn't, as much of a need for part-time employees, because we believe that the majority of those sales were done in 2022. So for 2023, we had asked for 2 part-time seasonal help. This year, we will be selling the first calendar year sticker. And so we're requesting 4 part-time seasonals for a 12-week period of time. For personnel services, I had requested to offer an additional training seminar for my staff. MMA offers a finance management seminar through Suffolk University. And I would like to be able to send one of my staff to that at the seminar that's offered in the fall. One of the other increases is due to our office is implementing a new online platform called Invoice Cloud. When there's any checks that are returned for any online payments, they do charge us a $10 fee per check. Currently, the banks did not charge us those fees, but through this online platform, they will be charging us. That will be collected from the individual who had the check returned. So we're budgeting for it to pay for it, but we do intend to recoup those fees. And there's some additional fees just for the monthly access fee and cloud stores with this new online platform. In addition, the mileage reimbursement, that increased a little bit. And some of that is just the reimbursement rate from the IRS had increased. And there's a lot of trainings that the Massachusetts Collector Treasurers Association offers. We don't get to attend many of them, but there's definitely a lot of trainings that they offer throughout the year, and we would like to try to be able to participate more in those trainings. As far as expenditures, that's pretty much it for the Treasurer Collector's Office, but I did just want to mention revenue that we take in. So we do have some items that we deposit to the general fund that will offset the overall cost to the department's budget, which are municipal lien certificates. And based on, I believe it was last year's, there's approximately $136,000 that we collected for those municipal lien certificates. And in addition to that, we receive a rebate from e-payables. So we have signed up some of the vendors who are willing to, rather than wait for a paper check, they have some options to receive a credit card where they can swipe for their payment. And then Bank of America provides us with a rebate on an annual basis. And this past year, we just received $73,000. I don't know if you want me to go into the tax title and foreclosures, or if you have any questions based on the treasurer collectors.
Do we have any questions before we go on to the tax foreclosures?
You want to vote this
Okay.
one first before you go on to tax title and
do.
foreclosure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 We approve treasurer and collector, and we will move on to the tax title and foreclosure.
That's
that is
page 10 of
10 of
67.
67. Yeah. So it's going to be right after the FinCom Reserve Fund.
So the tax title and foreclosure budget, there is no increase. We've just asked for that to be level funded.
Okay, do I have a motion? Or is there any questions?
I've got my pages out of order. I'm just trying to find if I had any questions on that.
So that budget basically pays for the costs associated with the collector's office putting liens on property of people who don't pay their taxes. So
Okay.
there's, registry fees, legal fees, that kind of thing that we have to pay, and then we end up getting recoup those fees when those people who go into that we get it back from them. That comes in as a revenue source.
Okay. Yeah, no questions.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
The last budget that, the treasurer collector is gonna sit with us through is, the community debt, section of Subcommittee B budget, where the long-term debt, long-term interest, short-term interest, miscellaneous interest, and bond issuance costs. I'll present this budget. Patty's gonna support me in this budget. Patty's been our treasurer collector now for just coming on a year, right, Patty?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years. Are you kidding me? 2 years. Okay. It's going by.
all right, Lynn, we just need to find that. So,
Okay, it's page 44 of 67 is the first page.
Right there. 34 or 44.
I'm sorry, 44 of 67.
Thank you.
You ready?
okay, yep, I'm ready, go ahead.
Mhm.
Okay, so for presentation purposes, so we have a section for long-term principal, long-term interest, short-term interest. Years ago, when we first, converted to this, our software here, we were setting up a unique and identified account number for each and every, bond that we did. We found that we were running out of numbers and we couldn't do that anymore. So in your presentation, in your report, you're gonna see, some very specific line items that are particular bond issues that the town has done, over the years. And then in long-term principal, it's the principal that we're paying in this one particular fiscal year for that item. The account that we're using now for any, debt that's in a long-term state is, it's the very first account that you see there. It's called long-term debt. And in your detail, if you needed the detail, we can provide that to you, but that basically includes anything that's come on in the last, probably like maybe the last time we did a bond issue and our new bond issue items that we're going to be doing in June. So we normally borrow on a long-term basis, like every 2 years. The last time we did a long-term bond issue was in May, June of 2021. Now, we did not go out and do long-term borrowing last May and June. And the reason why was because a lot of the projects that we had going on weren't like done yet and ready to really go into a long-term phase. And then secondly, the interest rates had risen so much that we wanted to sort of defer and wait and see how interest rates, would play out, if interest rates were going to go down at all and that kind of thing. So the items that we needed cash flow for, we borrowed on a short-term basis last June. So when we borrow on a short-term basis, alls we incur is interest costs on that, on those items on a short-term basis. But what we're doing this year is, in this budget, is we're planning on going out to borrow long-term in June of 24. And so included in that 4 million of long-term debt is our new principal, which is the increase of 1.8 million. So that represents our new principal, that's going to be like the first year payment for that bond issue. And those items include like the 2 fire stations, the one in West Plymouth, the one down on, State Road in Manamet. It includes dredging, it includes, some road infrastructure project work. It includes some other, sidewalks and traffic signals and other projects that have been voted at town meeting, to be authorized to borrow. And those projects are, you know, sort of either completed or in process or something like that. So that's why you see the increase in, the long-term debt. You also see an increase in beach nourishment because we've been doing a long-term project with beach nourishment. That's one of the separate unique accounts that we have. So when we have any new items for that one, that's where we budget it. But everything else is a decrease because either the principal payment is that particular bond issue is paid off or the principal payment is reducing because when we borrow primarily like 90% of the time we do what's called level principal instead of level debt. So the level principal will start out with a, you know, a higher principal amount, and then the principal will sort of reduce after so many years until it's paid off. So you'll see several long-term items, and then you'll see long-term interest, which the increase in that area of the 1.7, that's associated with this new bond issue that we're going to be doing in June, which are those items that I explained before. We do not have a budget for short-term interest because we basically plan on doing a long-term bond issue. And then in June or leading up to June, if it ends up that there's a project that is not ready to go long-term because the project like hasn't started yet, because I don't like to borrow any money if a project hasn't started. So for example, the lights and the traffic lights in the reconstruction of Court Street and Cherry Street near CVS in North Plymouth. That's a project that got voted at town meeting. The engineering for that project is in progress right now, but it may or may not like go out to bid by the end of June. So I would be hesitant probably to borrow that long term if the project hasn't even started yet. So we may switch and do like a short-term issue, and that's okay because we're budgeting for a long term, so we have principal and interest in the budget. So if we do pivot and switch to doing something short-term, we do have money in the budget. It's just in the like in the long-term account, and we can just make an adjustment to move it to the short-term account because town meeting just votes one total for community debt. We don't vote the particular, you know, individual line items. And then we also budget for any bond issuance costs that we might have to incur, and also the miscellaneous interest line item of the $5,000. That's for it's really very, very miscellaneous. Sometimes someone may have applied, a lot of times it's for a business that might have applied for an abatement through the assessor's office, and that particular abatement has gone to ATB, and it's taken many years for that abatement to process, and ATB has granted them an abatement. When that happens, we actually owe the taxpayer some interest. So we sort of have a little line item with a very small amount of interest that we use to pay that interest payment. And that's basically the debt budget. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer for you.
Yeah, so the 2025 town manager recommendation, all those numbers, is that what's left on the principal on all these projects?
That's just the fiscal 25 principal payment for that particular project. Like
Okay,
a project, we might have borrowed 20 years for a project,
okay,
and we're only paying 1/20th of that principal amount. And that's what's in this budget,
okay.
okay?
So, all right, so that's not the remaining principal on any of these,
No,
unless it's the last year.
exactly. Yep.
What is our bond rating at this point?
It's a AA+ with Standard and Poor's, and it's a AA, like a AA1 with
Moody's.
Moody's. Yep.
And so obviously you think that rates are going to be dropping mid-year.
So I mean, the feds have, it has, they've said that the rates will probably drop this calendar year. I know that our investment advisor on the retirement board has told us that I guess the feds, they schedule so many decreases, but the fact that they may not actually do them is also something that happens. But there's something like 4 or 5 decreases scheduled for this year. So I'm hoping that I'm hoping rates will go down, but our budget, we get our numbers from our financial advisor, and our financial advisor recommended a certain interest rate, which is what we're using in here. So usually they're conservative, and whatever that rate ends up actually coming in. And then the other thing that usually happens is we budget based on coupon rate for our bonds. And when we usually go out and sell our bonds, we get several bids, sometimes up to like almost 10 bids from different, investment companies. And usually what we get in return is a premium. So the premium is required to be used to pay down what we're going to borrow. So if we have to borrow, $12 million for the fire station, but we receive a $2 million premium, we take that $2 million and we reduce the principal, so we only borrow $10 million. So it usually, what we budget for is usually pretty conservative.
One question on the reporting that we're looking at. For the 2024 year-to-date actuals, I'm assuming that the zeros are just because it's January and we haven't finished the fiscal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So those expenditures are through the date of the report. So through January 11th of 2024. So if there isn't a payment in that column, it will most likely, we've sort of been on a cycle of, so when we borrow, we pay one principal amount and we pay 2 interest payments a year. So what you'll see is probably, in this report, no principal payment, because the principal payment is going to happen in May or June or April, when we originally, the timeline that we're on, and then half of the interest payment would have already happened.
Okay. Thank you.
So that 2.2 million will be paid, say, May or June
Yes.
from
Yes.
24. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions? So Lynn, this is a lot to absorb, and it'll be a lot to absorb for my minutes. So, and there isn't a write-up sheet on this, but do you think maybe you and I could just talk a little bit further on summarizing this?
Yep.
At maybe another time, or I'll just look at the recording and summarize it to the best of my ability.
Okay, and you can send it to me and I can help you, add things to
Okay.
it.
Sure.
Yep.
That sounds good. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah,
Christine,
aye.
Aye.
Yes.
I did see a hand raised, Lorenzo's.
Yeah, hi, this is Lorenzo Pizarro as a
Hi,
project.
Lorenzo. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm joining as a private citizen, but I'm also a member of the Advisory and Finance Committee. And
Yes.
Ms. Barrett, I'm looking at just the long-term debt, something that's a focus of mine as a private citizen for Plymouth. And I just want to be correct here. So when you look at page 45, the variance from 2025 to 2024, that's 1.87 million. That's new principal we're paying off.
New principal that's gonna be coming on. So we're doing a large bond issue in June of this year, which includes some projects that have been previously voted by town meeting. Includes two fire stations, the one in West Plymouth, the one down on State Road. It includes $5 million in road improvements. It includes dredging. It includes several other smaller projects, but those are the big ones.
Right.
So the 1.8 and is new principal. And then the 1.7 on the interest side is the new interest payment. And those are estimates. So we're not going out to borrow until June. We go out to bid on our borrowing. We use a financial advisor when we do that. We usually do really well. I mean, we get several bids on our debt. We have to sit with, we usually sit with Standard & Poor's, and we get a rating on the town with a report and everything. A lot of that information I put on the finance department's website. So I know that you had emailed me, Lorenzo, about getting some amortization, like payments and principal and interest schedules. I have a very, very large Excel spreadsheet that we keep all this information on. It has several bond issues. The only thing it doesn't include on that spreadsheet is the interest rate that we get for each of these bonds. But we do have, I mean, if you wanted to know specifically an interest rate on a certain bond, I can provide that to you, but it varies.
Okay.
So I apologize. Do you have any other questions? I'm sort of rambling there.
Yeah, no, this is good. And I'm a kind of a numbers junkie.
Yeah.
So when you look at the total principal, that's go up to 11.3
Yep.
so all things being equal in FY 2026, that would still be 11.3 minus some principal debt pay down, right?
Yeah, so what I was explaining to the committee earlier, so like 90% of the time when we go out to borrow, we do level principal payments. We
Yeah.
don't do level debt like a mortgage. So what happens is our debt sort of declines every year. So some of the principal stays the same for like the first few years, but then it starts to decline. And that's where, in working with our capital plan, we try to fit, new debt on, for new projects to sort of stay within 6 to 8% of our operating budget for our debt service budget.
Okay. And then the last question, or second to last question, the interest just on that page, it's going to go up to our 6.9 million next year, right? Those are interest payments.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And then the bond issue in June, is that only limited to institutional investors, or is that open to residents of Plymouth?
So when we go out and sell our bonds, we basically sell to institutional well, so we sell, like JP Morgan might end up getting it, or some bank or something, and then they, like, you can buy municipal bonds like through those means. Like we don't sell them directly to
I sell them.
Okay, there you go.
You go to
You can get it through Steve.
you go to an advisor, well, you don't have to go to me, obviously, but you go to an advisor for a broker dealer that has a bond inventory. So the underwriters can sell to the people in the underwriting group and the syndicate below that.
Mhm.
And then once they go on the open market and they start trading, then you can get them virtually at any brokerage place that can tap into an inventory.
Great. I mean, if you're a Plymouth resident and you believe in the town of Plymouth and you have some disposable income, that would be a great way to make a commitment to the town of Plymouth.
Yeah, and you get double tax free from federal and state taxes, which is nice.
That's
Yeah.
nice. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Barrett.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Pizarro. Any other questions? Okay, so do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Lynn, you can tell me what's next.
Okay, thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
So we're gonna go back to the very beginning, page 4 out of 67, which is finance and accounting. So this is one of the divisions, basically, accounting is one of the divisions of the finance department, including procurement, assessing, and treasurer collector. So basically, this department is everyone that works in sort of payroll, accounts payable, general ledger, accounting, all that happens. The grant writer is in this department. And then we also have a couple of new things in this department that weren't, well, one of them is a request for a new initiative, and then one of them is a new position that is starting this year. So the new position that's starting this year that's actually going to be under the finance department is the COPC coordinator. Town meeting funded some money for that position at the fall town meeting. The funding for that right now is in the town manager's office, but the request for next year, fiscal 25, that whole position is now being funded in the finance department. So that's part of the existing salary increase of 75,000. So the 75 includes that position being funded in full, and it's a full-time position, non-union position, and then any contractual increases for the staff make up that $75,000 increase. As far as the new initiative, what that represents is we have a part-time finance administrator who supports payroll, AP, and general accounting measures in this office. Currently, that position is a 25-hour-a-week position. So she's basically eligible for benefits right now. It's just that she wasn't able to work full-time. And next year, we are increasing that to full-time, which is 37.5 hours. She's going to be able to work full-time. And she is a critical piece to this department. Holds a lot of hats, wears a lot of hats for our department. And as part of succession planning, the town manager's office wanted each department to sort of try to do some succession planning. That position is really critical to be full-time to support the accounting officer, payroll, AP. I'm gonna probably be retiring in, not right now, but in 3 to 4 years. So we're trying to sort of get things situated in the office so that that can happen. And then just the other increases are just contractual increases. And then as far as professional services, the expense increases, we we use crystal reporting, which is a critical reporting mechanism for all of our financial reports. The reports that you're looking at are crystal reports. We use a consultant that assists us in creating those reports and updating those reports every year. Those services have increased just because of the demand of different things and our software changing, and then they have to go in and revamp all the reports. So we wanted to make sure that we had sufficient money in there. The only thing that's decreasing is our accounting and auditing. We have an outside auditor who does the annual audit. So they do basic financial statements for us. They do a management report, and they do the federal reporting for all of our federal grants. We're required to do that because the town of Plymouth receives more than $750,000 in federal grants on an annual basis. So we do have that. And then the OPEB valuation service is done out of this department. So once every 2 years, we do a full valuation, which costs about $10,000 to $11,000. And then on the off year, the every other year, that's not the full valuation, we do what's called a statement, GASB statement. They update the valuation to the following fiscal year financial statement date, and that only costs about between $400 and $4,500. So we're only budgeting next year for the GASB statement update instead of the full valuation. So that's basically the finance and accounting budget. If you have any questions. Oh, Christine, you're on mute.
Do we have any questions?
No, it looks like the major part of the rise was the new employee. Or much of it anyway.
So that new COPC, that new employee, so part of that is going to be funded by the CPC?
Yes,
Wasn't it 25,000?
yeah, yep.
That was
So,
a battle for that.
yeah,
I
so
remember
there,
correctly.
it's going to be like, it's almost like a half funded through CPC and then half
Half
funded
through the town.
through the general fund.
Right.
That's basically what it comes down to.
That's what they approved, right? Okay. And then it's the LTIA buybacks seem to be.
Yeah, and the increase in the hours of the 25 to 37.5 hour increase, that represents 25,000 of that increase.
Yeah. And, okay. Yeah, I have no further questions.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the finance?
Motion to approve finance and
And accounting.
accounting division budget.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is approved.
Okay. So the next budget we have is in the fixed cost area. And one of them is the salary reserve, which we talked a little bit about earlier. So basically the salary reserve account is storing a set aside for contractual negotiations. That number represents about $3,537,000, and that's for both the town and the school. The rest of it, which is like almost 67,000. So there have been different departments, including finance, that have requested reclassifications of certain positions. And so those requests, the dollar amount associated with those reclassifications is sitting in this budget. So as we go through the process with the town manager's office, the human resources department, and the unions, negotiating with the unions, if those reclassifications get approved, then the funding for those would be transferred from here into those specific departments. But basically, that's what this budget is.
What page is that? Sorry.
So
2 of
the summary
67.
page is 2 of 67 within the fixed cost area.
Oh, okay.
It's the very first one in the fixed cost area.
The next one has the breakout, Steve.
Yeah, and then there's a green page that has the detail line items with some more explanation.
So is the police reclassification, is that, just out of curiosity, is that for the harbor master or is that?
No, that's for a firearms administrator. He's actually requesting that particular position, which is in SEIU, which is our clerical union. He's requesting that to be reclassified to OPI, which is our sort of supervisory union.
Middle management, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, do I have any other questions?
No.
The salary
Straightforward.
reserve fund,
Pretty straightforward.
okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, salary reserve is approved. FinCom reserve,
So FinCom reserve, I know some of you are familiar with it. I'm not sure if Dan is familiar with it being new. He might be. But the FinCom reserve is sort of a set aside in the budget for any extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures that may come up during the fiscal year. And when those happen, the department has to go before the Advisory and Finance Committee and request those funds from this allocation of money. And we have used it in the past for different circumstances with a fire department, a piece of equipment that needs to be repaired. The town clerk used it last year for purchasing of iPads for the election, which wasn't necessarily a extraordinary expenditure, but it was really unforeseen because we had a new town clerk who was used to using iPads, and using of iPads is very efficient. And we have a very large electorate, you know, and Advisory and Finance voted for that, and it worked out really well. So, so it has been used in the past. We haven't used any of it yet this year. We still have the 150 left there. And then sometimes in the spring or in your last meeting in June, sometimes we might use it if we have a snow and ice deficit or something. If it's been a really bad year for snow and ice and we have a deficit, we'll ask you to transfer money out of there to help fund that. That's what it's used for.
Okay, so it's level year to year.
Yep, yep.
Jen, I thought
And-
that was my salary.
well, it's split between all of us, Steve.
I
Oh.
know.
I get
No,
a
you
dollar
guys-
and you two get the rest.
You
Sounds
guys
pretty good.
you do contribute a lot of time to this committee, so.
You
That would-
noticed that, haven't you?
Yeah,
I hope this is recorded.
and we appreciate it very much.
Mm.
So, so my only question is, we haven't used any of it year to date?
Not
have.
this fiscal year, not
this
yet.
fiscal year, okay. All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving right along. Tax title is done.
Isn't this your thing, Christine?
I'm sorry,
Isn't this your expertise?
what's that?
Tax and title?
Tax and title? We did that.
Yeah, but you guys
Didn't we?
you voted that one, yeah.
Yes, voted those. No, that's okay. We
Just
did
a-
that. with the-
All right, trying to jump around here.
I know, well,
The next one is
Mhm.
pension
Pension
contributions.
contributions.
Okay, got it.
That's your thing.
That's my thing. I love pensions.
So, this increase overall is at, basically an 8% increase, to our pension assessment. And the pension appropriation, so in Massachusetts, well, for cities and towns, if you work for a municipality, you don't pay into Social Security. So we pay into our own retirement system, which is the Plymouth retirement system. And then it's a defined contribution plan, so the town contributes to that plan also. So this is the town contribution, and we're also, so in Massachusetts, there was no requirement up to a certain year to fund the pensions like in total, I guess. So there's what we call an unfunded liability with our pension system. And this appropriation pays towards that unfunded liability. And we are required to have that unfunded liability paid off by the year 2040. And Plymouth, and we do an actuarial valuation once every 2 years. And we are estimated to pay off that liability by the year 2035. And that's why we increased the appropriation about 8% so that we can get it paid off by 2035. And the reason for doing that is if for any reason in one particular year, we have a bad year with our investments or an assumption changes, that's a dramatic assumption change. We have a little bit of a cushion, to push it off in 2036, 2037, that kind of thing. I know I usually send this committee the copy of the valuation report so that you guys have a copy of it. If you're interested, I will send that to you again, this year. But, that is the contribution on the town share for that.
What does how many hours or, or years or quarters does an employee need to put in full-time to qualify for a pension? Or is this
So-
on,
It's
This
Mass
notes-
General laws. So Mass General Law dictates, it's 10 years for you to vest. So, after 10 years you vest, but then for you to be eligible for a pension, it depends on the year that you were hired, because we have certain rules for people that were hired prior to April 1st of 2012, and then we have new rules for people who were hired after April 1st of 2012. So you have to reach a certain age, you have to have so many years of service. Your pension is based on the either last 3 years of salary or your last 5 years of salary, depending. So there's a lot of different, and in this valuation report, it talks a lot about the rules and assumptions that are used in determining the immunization schedule.
And actually, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think I would like to see it if I'm sure the rest of the board wouldn't mind, but
Yep.
seeing it, but I would. What about if you take on an employee from another municipality?
So what happens is, so for example, like I've worked in 3 other places before I came here. So what happens is I apply application through Plymouth Retirement System. They accept my application, and then they go back and they transfer. So you have your own sort of annuity account with each system that you were with before. So they transfer over any of those monies. But then when you go to retire, the system that you retire from actually sends a bill to those previous systems. So when I retire, they'll send a bill to Barnstable County and they'll send one to Plymouth County. And it's called a 3/8C chargeback. So they'll charge back to those retirement systems a portion of my retirement allowance. And they'll, money will come into the system that way.
Okay.
Lynn, on this specific page on the detail listing, there's a line item for school lunch for 264,000. Can you just clarify what that is?
So, when we asked the retirement system to allocate the appropriation amongst the enterprise funds so that we can charge back to the enterprise funds and into the indirects, so we'd have an indirect transfer from the enterprise funds into the general fund to help pay for each of those. And then the retirement system, when they send the detail to us, they actually break out of the appropriation who are school employees and who are school lunch employees. So that amount represents sort of a portion of the appropriation that's being allocated to the school and to the school lunch employees. And these people belong to the Plymouth retirement system versus the Mass Teachers retirement system because they're not teachers. So like school lunch employees, custodians, secretaries, bus drivers, like all of the support people that work at the schools belong to the Plymouth retirement system, and then the teachers and that kind of thing belong to Mass Teachers retirement system.
Gotcha. Just want to
Yeah.
make sure it wasn't actual food. It was
No.
employees. There we
Oh,
go.
no, yeah. It's the school lunch employees that work in food
Yep.
service.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unemployment compensation?
Okay, so for unemployment purposes, most private businesses pay a percentage of payroll for unemployment. In Massachusetts, cities and towns pay basically actual incurred costs for unemployment. So if someone does go collect, we pay that actual weekly benefit plus any dependency allowances that they're allowed for unemployment. We also have what's called an unemployment trust fund. So the line item in the budget is just an amount to actually transfer into the trust fund. And we pay claims out of the trust fund. So basically the 6-year annual average of payments for claims out of the trust fund is approximately $120,000. And the 6-year average of 120, I mean, it sort of seems a little bit, well, because we had a lot of claims, like say during COVID. We had claims during COVID, but then the federal government reimbursed for some of those claims. So some of the 6-year averages are a little skewed because of that. And that 120,000 breaks down between the town and the school, about 38,000 on the town side, 82,000 or so on the school side. So about 32% of the claims are on the town side, 68% of the claims are on the school side. As of October of 23, which was the last time I looked at this trust fund, we had a balance in the trust fund of about 311,000. So when I looked at the trust fund balance and the actual claims that were being paid, I estimated that the trust fund was going to, be able to pay the claims for the rest of this year and sufficiently sort of carry some of the claims next year. So we normally ask for about like $125,000 budget out of here, but we're only asking for $60,220. Last year, it's an increase from last year because we only transferred in there 20,000, But the year before that, we had actually transferred in 125. So I think we're slowly creeping up on that. The other thing that we're looking at is because of, if the town, based on this budget and constraints with negotiating salaries and school, you know, the school teacher's contract and all that, I mean, both the town and the school are looking at if we had to do any layoffs, and calculating of those numbers, we would have to include a number for potential unemployment claims. So we're both sort of going through that exercise of, you know, what would that look like? So basically, if you were going to lay 2 people off, you probably have to lay almost 3 people off to be able to pay the unemployment for that. So, but that's basically, I think the trust fund will be sufficient if we don't have any, you know, major layoffs.
Okay, I have a question. I don't know. For me, it just seems odd to just take 40,000 away to put into an unemployment account and not have it available for money for salaries. And I know how it works because it works the same way with the county, because they're also self-funded on the unemployment side. But wouldn't we just fund it with the salaries if it came down to it?
So the only thing I'm asking for is just a line for 60,000 to be transferred into the trust fund to assist in paying claims. And what you're saying is don't put any money into it?
Well, no, I'm just saying if we already have, say, 311 in there, and I'm not going to question, you know, how it works, you know, how you do it. I was questioning why the increase when we don't know if layoffs are even going to happen, and if they are, wouldn't it be best, or if we're looking at a budget, why are we putting more money away for potential layoffs instead of keeping the money in the budget to stay away from that? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, 60,000 might help to pay for one salary, you know,
Yeah, and that's,
I think the amount that I'm looking to transfer in there is really just to help support sort of current layoff activity. Not necessarily layoffs from the town of Plymouth, but if someone were to work for us and then they leave and they go work for someone else, they do a clawback, you know, to the town of Plymouth. They go back, I believe it's 5 quarters in looking at who's going to pay for that liability. So sometimes we get caught, you know, paying for unemployment for someone who has since gone somewhere else. So it's really just
gone
sort of,
somewhere else and then then was laid off at that other place. Okay.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that was like your
yeah.
example, Lynn, that you worked in other places and came here and they're still responsible for your
Right. Yeah.
works, the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
So it's really, so if we had to go back to town meeting and ask for more money for contracts, but those contracts, say it didn't pass or something, you know, we'd have to figure out sort of, you know, an amount of money that we may have to then put in here to cover any potential layoffs.
And I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, you know, so that when we go to, you know, discuss this at caucuses, I have an understanding of it. So,
Right.
you know, we're not, you know, it's not like because if somebody looks at this budget and says, well, why are we putting $40,000 more in the unemployment budget? You know, you're going to have employees say, wait a minute, are they looking at layoffs? And, you know, then people start getting worried and nervous.
Right,
And, then, so you wanna, I'm just looking at it from that standpoint. However, understanding that in this economy, that you want to cover yourself for layoffs in if people leave and they're laid off from another employer, their
Right.
future employer.
yeah.
Okay, understood. Are there any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And unemployment compensation is approved.
Okay. The next budget is the member insurance budget. So this particular budget is for all of the health insurance plans that we have that we're self-insured for. So we have a HMO, a PPO, we have a high deductible health plan, and MedX. So all of those plans we are sort of self-insured for. So this budget actually is the employer share of those benefits for active employees and retirees. The reason for the decrease, even though health insurance rates will be going up, the town participated with the Public Employee Committee Group, which is the PEC. You might hear that acronym. That is the Public Employee Committee, which includes a member of every collective bargaining unit, plus a representative from the retirees. But the town actually negotiated a new PEC agreement with the groups back in February of 2023. We started to implement that program this current fiscal year. So there's many changes to the health insurance. So one of them, which was a significant savings for the town and retirees, is to put that group onto what's called, let's see, I want to get this right. So we put everyone on effective July 1st. The PEC agreed to implement the Pillar RX cost share financial assistance program, which uses manufactured coupons, whatever. We also converted everyone to Medicare Part D through for prescriptions through Blue Cross versus through the private individual plans that we have. So that was a huge savings. And then the other savings is starting effective July 1 of 24. The contribution rate for new hires is going to change from someone paying 25% for their health insurance to paying 30% for their health insurance. And that's for new hires for fiscal 25, and then fiscal 26, the increase in the contribution rate is going to go to all current employees. So what you're seeing is the savings of the Medicare Part D, PDP plan, and the contribution rate changes.
Has that already been negotiated?
Yes. So this new agreement is actually on our website. I can email you guys a copy of it. But it is in effect, but it's a 6-year agreement, and there's different things happening like in each of the years.
And this applies across the board for both county and school.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Just like to
And-
put it out there and say that this reduction is, commendable, and I really appreciate the work that everybody put in to somehow reduce healthcare costs. It's pretty incredible. So
Yeah, so you'll see it when one of the next budgets that we're gonna do is the OPEB trust, the line item in our budget to fund our OPEB trust, which is other post-employment benefits for retirees, health, life, and dental. And we were able to decrease our liability, our net liability on that by $205 million because of these changes. So not only did we save some money in the budget, but we saved money in that future liability for those retirees.
Okay, well, let's stick with this one and I will ask it for a motion.
Motion to approve.
seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, so member insurance is approved. And we will move on to OPEB trust.
So the OPEB trust, so basically we have a financial policy where we are committed to funding at least 1% of the covered payroll that is used to determine the OPEB, actuarial liability. That covered payroll is approximately 128, almost 129 million in total for the fiscal 23. That's the number that was used, that was sent to our actuary. So 1% of that is 1,288,596. So that's the amount that we're recommending to transfer into the OPEB trust from the budget. And the way that we do that is we allocate an amount to the general fund, which includes town and school. So we're requesting 1,263,179, which is an increase of 90,688 over the previous year's funding. And then the rest of it is in the enterprise fund budgets that Subcommittee G did the other day. But this is the general fund portion. And like I said, the liability, so the unfunded liability or the net OPEB liability back in 2020 was $987 million. The most recent valuation that we just had done was June 30th of 2023, which includes a lot of the changes to the insurances that we did. So the net OPEB liability as of that date is 576 million. So it's decreased a lot because of changes that we've done to benefits. It's also decreased because when the actuary does the valuation for the liability, she uses the 20-year bond, interest rate. So when the interest rate increases, the liability decreases. So back in 2020, that interest rate was 2.21%, and the one she used for 23 was 3.65%. So it's a combination of changes in benefits and then changes in the assumptions that they use to do the valuation.
Can't complain about that.
Yeah, and I can send you a copy of that report too. You guys have a lot of reading.
Yeah,
If you're
we have a lot of reading all the time. Do I have a motion?
A motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. OPEB trust funding is approved. Let's see, compensated absences.
Yeah, I think that's the last one,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yep. So, we have another, it's sort of another trust fund, compensated absence fund. So, Mass General Laws allows you to have this separate fund. You can transfer money into it every year. That fund pays for the compensated absences of those people who terminate employment with you, retire, and their unused vacation time or any sick time benefit, which some of the group bargaining units have a payment upon retirement. And there's some other criteria in there. You have to have been an employee of the town for so many years to be eligible. You have to have not had, long-term disability, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of different things, but so there's some of them have like a small payment. Some of them range from like $2,500 to, well, I think the most is 5,000, I think. So this fund pays for those benefits upon termination of employment. And then this line item in the budget just helps fund that fund.
And why the increase of 25,000?
Let's see.
It's going from 125 to 150.
So we never have enough in that fund to pay to pay those compensated absences. So what ends up happening is the fund is usually used for those departments. For example, if I had someone leave my department, and that person left with, say, 5 weeks of vacation and a $2,500 payment for I wouldn't be able to hire someone to replace that person for a number of weeks, maybe months, to actually do that. So that's why we sort of created the fund, was to help those departments who don't really have that money available in their budgets to pay. So what ends up happening every year is we pay most of the smaller departments people that leave don't have the money in their fund to help pay for those. And then a lot of times if we had a police officer or a firefighter retire, because they are more apt to have like some vacancies, and sometimes it takes them so long to hire replacements for those because they have to go through civil service, they have to wait for the exam and for the list to come out, and then they go through a process. So sometimes those particular compensated absences are paid out of those particular budgets because they usually have some money available for that. So for example, at October 31st of 23, this particular fund had $52,000 left in it at that time. So I'm requesting to put 150 into it so that we can, continue to pay for those liabilities when they come up.
Okay.
Oh, actually, right now we have a balance of 22,311. So it'll probably be gone before the end of this fiscal year.
So what happens if it's gone and you still have a month or two left? Do you take it from another budget?
Yeah, so if it's a like a DPW person, or if it's a police or fire and that particular department has enough money in their salary budget, we'll pay it out of there. If it's not, and it's a department, we would probably come for like a reserve fund transfer, because we didn't expect it, didn't anticipate it. But
So I guess what's the benefit of putting the 25 in here versus putting the 25 in the reserve fund? If you're going to just pull it out of the reserve fund if you need it anyway.
well, I mean, we haven't done that. That's only like a last resort if it ends up that we don't have money in the budget for it. That hasn't happened to us. We can usually plan, who those retirements are going to be. So, I mean, I'd rather have it in the fund so that we can pay those compensated absences out of the fund.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the compensated absences budget.
Seconded, this is Dan, switched to my phone.
Yeah, his computer died. So, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Compensated absences is approved.
Thank you.
And I think that's it.
Yep, that was the last
Okay.
one. So if you have any additional questions, Christine, or need help putting together any, reports, just let me know.
Yeah, I've actually already started
Okay,
doing all my reports ahead of time, getting,
okay,
yeah, so it shouldn't take me long to get that done. And I'll talk to you, actually, when you recapped for Lorenzo, I took further notes, so
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so we should be okay. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll let Dan do that one.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning for the evening?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned at 4:40, and thank you all, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Thank you.